I live here alone, the little girl told the millionaire, but he discovers the truth. Comment what you thought of this story with a rating from 0 to 10 and tell me what city you're watching from. I really want to know if you liked my story and get to know you better, so subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the banks of Cypress Creek when Daniel Harrison parked his pickup truck near the old wooden bridge. At 52, the entrepreneur had built a modest empire, transporting fruit across the South, but he wasn't there on business today. His tired eyes scanned the undergrowth for what was left of his fishing boat, beached for 3 years after a flood devastated the region. The dark wood of the 40-foot vessel emerged from between the bushes like a skeleton abandoned by time. Daniel took a deep breath, adjusting the straw hat that protected his face, marked by the southern sun. He needed to sell that relic, which only brought him bitter memories of Sundays lost on the river, trying to fish while escaping the problems piling up at home. He approached the boat with cautious steps, testing the hull's firmness against the parched earth. The planks groaned under his weight but held. That's when he heard a strange noise coming from inside the main cabin, something like the whisper of a low conversation, almost imperceptible. Daniel frowned. There shouldn't be anyone there. That forgotten piece of land was miles from town, surrounded only by abandoned fields and the dry beds of small streams. He held his breath and approached the cabin entrance, where a curtain of worn fabric swayed slightly in the breeze. No, he can't come today. He's not ready yet, a childlike voice murmured from the other side of the curtain. His heart is still too heavy. But you said he was going to come anyway, right? The entrepreneur pushed the curtain aside carefully and felt the world stop around him. In the center of the dusty cabin, a little girl of about 4 was sitting on the floor, surrounded by handmade rag dolls. Her curly hair was covered in dust, and her clothes, a little blue dress clearly patched several times, told stories of abandonment that ached in his chest. Upon seeing him, the child showed no surprise or fear. She just lifted her large, dark eyes, observing Daniel with a seriousness unsettling for her age. "You took a long time," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "I live here alone and I don't need anyone, but the pretty lady said you would show up anyway." Daniel swallowed hard, feeling his legs tremble. He looked around the cabin and noticed signs that someone really lived there. A small makeshift fire in a corner, leftover food stored in old cans, and an organized corner where the girl clearly slept, using rags as a pillow. "Little girl, where are your parents?" he asked, crouching down to her level. "I don't have parents. I only have the pretty lady, but she only comes at night," the child replied, returning to arranging her dolls in a perfect row. "My name is Lily, and you're Dan, right? The pretty lady said you have a moon-shaped scar on your right shoulder." Daniel's blood ran cold. No one, absolutely no one, knew about that scar. He had kept it hidden for decades, a birthmark his mother used to kiss when he was little, calling it "my Dan's moon." Only she had ever used that nickname, and his mother had been buried for 15 years. "How do you know that?" he murmured, his voice coming out hoarser than he intended. Lily stopped playing and looked at him with those eyes that seemed to carry too much knowledge for a child. "The pretty lady tells me a lot of things about you. She said you'd be angry at first, then you'd be confused, and then you'd want to take me away from here. But I can't leave. I have to wait." "Wait for what?" "Wait for you to understand," she replied. She simply going back to her play. Daniel stood up abruptly, his heart pounding erratically. This made no sense at all. How could a child abandoned on a boat know such intimate details of his life? And who was this pretty lady she mentioned? "Lily, you can't stay here alone. Where do you get food? Water?" "I manage. I know how to find fruit in the woods, and I drink river water when it rains." And when I get really hungry, people show up and leave food near the bridge, she pointed out of the cabin. But I always come back. Come here because this is where the pretty lady comes to see me. The entrepreneur ran a hand over his face, trying to process the situation. His plans to sell the boat had just become drastically complicated. He couldn't just leave an abandoned child there, but he also didn't know what to do. The girl's story was too absurd to be made up, but too impossible to be real. Listen, I have to go now, but I'll be back tomorrow with food and water for you, he said, heading for the exit. And we'll talk more about this situation. Are you really coming back? Lily asked, and for the first time her voice carried a tone of childish vulnerability. Yes, I will. The pretty lady said you always keep your promises, even when it hurts your heart a lot. Daniel stopped at the cabin entrance, not daring to turn around. That sentence echoed in his mind like a ghost from the past, reminding him of commitments he had failed to keep and people he had disappointed throughout his life. When he finally left the boat, his hands were trembling so much he could barely start the pickup truck. In the rear-view mirror, he saw Lily standing at the cabin entrance, waving to him with one of the rag dolls in her arms. The whole way back to Oakhaven, a single question hammered in his head. How did that child know about the scar that not even his ex-wife had discovered in 20 years of marriage? Daniel spent the whole night tossing and turning in bed, unable to get Lily's serious eyes and her impossible words out of his mind. At 5 in the morning, he gave up on sleep and went to the kitchen of his simple house in the center of Oakhaven. As he brewed strong coffee, his hands still trembled slightly at the memory of the moment the girl mentioned his scar. He decided he had to go back to the river with supplies, not just out of compassion, but because something about the situation intrigued him deeply. He prepared a bag with bread, fruit, water, and some children's clothes he found stored in a closet, leftovers from when his niece used to visit years ago. The drive to the boat seemed longer than the day before. With every mile, Daniel questioned whether he shouldn't just call social services and let them handle it, but something stopped him from making that logical decision. When he arrived, he found Lily sitting on the bow of the boat, carefully combing the hair of one of her rag dolls. She looked up and smiled, as if it were completely natural for him to have returned. "You brought food," she said, without showing any surprise. "The pretty lady said you'd bring good things today." "Lily, I need you to tell me more about this pretty lady. What does she look like? When do you see her?" The girl climbed down from the boat with surprising agility, and approached the bag Daniel had left on the ground. Her eyes lit up when she saw the fruit, but she didn't take anything without permission. "Can I have a banana?" "Of course, you can have whatever you want." While Lily savored the fruit with a hunger that broke his heart, Daniel observed her face more closely. There was something familiar in her features, in the way she tilted her head when she thought, in the way she organized everything around her in perfect rows. "The pretty lady has really long hair down to here," she said, indicating her waist. "And she's very young, like the ladies on TV. She always wears colorful beaded bracelets that make a little noise when she moves her hands." Daniel's heart almost stopped. Beaded bracelets. His sister Laura had been obsessed with beaded bracelets as a teenager. She made a point of wearing at least 5 on each arm, creating a symphony of little clicks with every movement. "This lady, does she have any marks on her face?" "A mole?" "She does. A tiny little mole right here on her chin." Lily touched her own chin in the exact spot. "And when she gets nervous, she scratches her nose like this." The girl demonstrated the gesture, and Daniel felt his legs weaken. It was exactly what Laura used to do. Exactly. "Lily, how long have you been seeing this lady?" "Since I got here. About 6 months, I think. She helped me fix things up on the boat and taught me how to make a little fire so I wouldn't get cold." 6 months. Daniel did some quick calculations in his head. If Lily was 4 and had been there for 6 months alone, it meant someone had abandoned her when she was just 3.5. The thought enraged him. And before these 6 months, where did you live? I don't remember well. I remember a small house with a lady who cried a lot. And I remember the sound of a car, a lot of noise. Then the pretty lady appeared and brought me here. Daniel knelt in front of the girl, trying to keep his voice calm. Lily, can I see your dolls? She hesitated for a moment, hugging the doll she was holding tighter. Why? I just want to meet them. It must be hard taking care of so many friends by yourself. Lily led him to the boat and showed him her small collection. There were 5 rag dolls, all hand-sewn with colorful scraps. But it was when she picked up the 6th doll, carefully stored in a shoebox, that Daniel felt the world spin around him. This one is special. The pretty lady gave her to me on the first day, Lily said, showing a doll made of light blue fabric with brown yarn hair. She said it was so I would never forget where I came from. The doll wore a small golden locket sewn to its neck. Daniel reached out a trembling hand and examined the pendant. Engraved on the oxidized metal were the initials L.H., Laura Harrison. The air seemed to thin in Daniel's lungs. That locket had belonged to his sister. He himself had given it to her for her 15th birthday, just a few months before everything in the family fell apart. Where did the pretty lady get this locket? I don't know. She just said it was very important, and that I had to take good care of it until you showed up. Until I showed up. Yes, she always knew you would come. She said you have a habit of leaving things to be resolved at the end, but you always resolve them. Lily's words echoed in Daniel's mind like an echo from the past. Laura always accused him of leaving everything to the last minute, from school homework to important conversations he avoided having. Lily, has the pretty lady ever told you her name? I never asked, but she sings pretty songs for me to sleep. Do you want to hear one? Before he could answer, the girl began to hum a melody that made every cell in Daniel's body recognize a memory buried for decades. It was the lullaby his mother used to sing to him and Laura at bedtime, an old folk song she said she had learned from her own grandmother. Who taught you that song? The pretty lady. She said it was a very old song from your family and that I had to know how to sing it right. Daniel stood up abruptly, walking in small circles beside the boat. None of it made sense, but the evidence was piling up in a way that was impossible to ignore. The eye locket, the gestures, the song, the details about his secret scar. How could a 4-year-old child know all that? Lily, when this pretty lady appears, can other people see her too? What other people? It's just me and her here. But if someone else were here, there's never anyone else, just us. The entrepreneur felt a chill run up his spine. He began to consider possibilities that his rational mind completely rejected, but that his wounded heart insisted on embracing. Listen, I'm going to get more things for you tomorrow, but I want you to promise me something. What? If anyone besides me shows up here, you scream really loud and hide inside the boat until the person goes away. But the pretty lady said only you would come. Even so, promise? I promise. Daniel left that afternoon with more questions than answers, but with a growing certainty that Lily was no ordinary child. There was a connection between her and his family that he needed to uncover, even if it meant facing ghosts from the past he had tried to bury for 20 years. That night, for the first time in decades, Daniel took the only photo he had kept of Laura from a locked drawer. Looking at his sister's young face, his breath caught. The resemblance to Lily's features was undeniable, subtle but present in the dark eyes and the shape of her smile. It was as if the past had returned to collect a debt he had never known how to pay. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a determination he hadn't felt in years. During the night, he had made a decision. He would discreetly investigate Lily's past and find out how she had ended up on that boat. But first, he needed to better understand the story she told about the mysterious lady. He prepared a backpack with more supplies and included a small recorder he used to record business transactions. If Lily really talked to someone at night, he wanted to have evidence. The path to the river had already become familiar, but this time Daniel stopped in town to ask a few questions. He went into Mr. Henderson's bakery, a shopkeeper who had known the area for decades. "Mr. Henderson, have you ever seen a little girl walking alone around Cypress Creek? A girl about 4 years old?" The old man stopped arranging the loaves of bread and frowned. "A little girl? You know, now that you mention it, yes. A few months ago, a woman used to come in here buying food and always asked to have some things wrapped separately. Said they were for a special child who lived far away." "What woman?" "A young woman, too thin, looked sick, long hair, always wore a lot of noisy bracelets. Didn't talk much, but always paid right." Daniel's heart raced. "How long ago did this happen?" "She stopped coming about 6 months ago, more or less. I thought it was strange at the time, but when a customer stops coming, you don't really ask questions, do you?" "And she never said where she lived?" "Never. But I once heard her on the phone saying she needed to prepare everything before leaving. I thought she was going on a trip, but then she just disappeared." Daniel left the bakery with more pieces of the puzzle, but also with more anguish. If there really was a woman taking care of Lily, where was she now? And why had she abandoned the child? He arrived at the river with these questions hammering in his head. Lily was waiting for him on the bank, playing in the sand with twigs she arranged in complex patterns. "You brought more things," she said, running to meet him. "I did, and today I want to stay here with you for a while." "The pretty lady said you'd want to do that. She said you were always too curious for your own good." Daniel stopped unpacking the backpack. "She really said that?" "She did. And she also said you'd start asking questions that would hurt your heart." "What kind of questions?" Lily stopped playing and looked at him seriously. "About why you didn't go after your sister when she ran away." The world seemed to stop around Daniel. His legs trembled and he had to lean on the boat's hull to keep from falling. How do you know about my sister?" "The pretty lady tells me a lot of things. She said you had a sister who liked colorful bracelets and ran away from home when she was young, and that you were heartbroken because you were the one who told Dad about her boyfriend." Lily's words hit Daniel like punches to the gut. It was true. He had discovered that Laura was secretly dating a boy from the wrong side of the tracks, and pressured by their father's explosive temper, he had told. The argument that followed was so violent that Laura left home that very night, shouting that she never wanted to see any of them again. "Lily, nobody else knows this story. Nobody. The pretty lady knows. She said you've carried this guilt for a long time, and that's why you ended up alone, without a family of your own." It was true again. Daniel had been married once, but the marriage lasted only 3 years. He had never been able to open up completely to his wife, always carrying the weight of having destroyed his own family. "Is the pretty lady here now?" "No, she only comes at night, but she leaves messages for you." "What messages?" Lily ran to the boat and came back with a crumpled piece of paper. "She wrote this yesterday." Daniel took the paper with trembling hands. It was a delicate, feminine handwriting that read, "Dan, you were always stubborn, but you have a good heart. Take good care of our little princess. She's what's left of the good in our family." The paper fell from Daniel's hands. Our little princess was what his mother used to call Laura when she was little, and Dan was the nickname only Laura used after their mother passed away. "Lily, where was this paper yesterday?" The pretty lady put it here inside the boat really early. She said it was important for you to read. And you saw her put it there? I did. She always does it like that, kind of hidden, as if she's ashamed of something. Daniel took the recorder from his backpack, determined to find out the truth. Lily, tonight I'm going to sleep here with you. I want to meet this pretty lady. Are you really going to stay? Yes, I am. The girl's face lit up with a genuine smile. The pretty lady will be happy. She always said she wanted to talk to you, but she was afraid. Afraid of what? That you wouldn't forgive her. The hours passed slowly. Daniel set up a makeshift tent next to the boat and prepared a simple dinner for himself and Lily. The whole time, he watched the girl's every move, looking for signs that she was making up the stories about the mysterious woman, but everything about Lily seemed genuine. She spoke of the pretty lady with a naturalness, like any child would talk about a real friend. There was no hesitation, no contradictions, no signs of childish fantasy. When night fell, Lily became more agitated. She'll be here soon, she said, arranging her dolls in a row. She always comes when the stars get really bright. Daniel discreetly turned on the recorder and pretended to be asleep. Around midnight, he heard Lily moving. He opened his eyes slightly and saw the girl leaving the boat and walking to the riverbank. "Hi, pretty lady," Lily whispered into the darkness. "Dan stayed here today. He wants to meet you." Daniel strained his ears, but he couldn't hear any response. Only Lily's voice, talking softly, as if someone were really there. "He read the note you left. I think he got sad," the girl continued. "Don't you want to talk to him today?" Silence. "Okay, but he's nice, you know. He brought yummy food and said he's going to take care of me." Lily stood there for almost an hour, talking to the void. To Daniel, it seemed like a child with an imaginary friend, but the details she knew about his life made everything much more complex. When she returned to the boat, she murmured softly, "She said tomorrow she's going to leave something important for you to find, something that will explain everything." Daniel pretended to continue sleeping, but he spent the rest of the night awake, questioning his own sanity. In the morning, when he officially woke up, he found Lily already playing in the sand. "The pretty lady left something for you," she said, pointing to a shallow hole dug near the boat. Daniel approached and found a small object wrapped in plastic buried there. When he unwrapped it, he almost fainted. It was Laura's class ring, with her name engraved inside and the date 1998. The same ring she was wearing the day she ran away from home. Daniel held the class ring with trembling hands, observing every detail that confirmed its authenticity. It was impossible for that object to be there by coincidence. Laura had run away wearing that ring, and now it appeared buried near a boat where a mysterious child was waiting for him. Lily, who buried this here? The pretty lady? She dug the hole very early when it was still dark. She said you would need to see this to believe her. And you saw her do it? I did. She cried a little while she was digging. I think it's something that makes her sad. Daniel put the ring in his pocket and made a decision that would change everything. He could no longer pretend this was a coincidence or a child's imagination. He needed to find out the truth, even if it meant facing possibilities his rational mind rejected. "Lily, I'm going out for a few hours. Today. I need to get some information about a few things. Will you be okay here alone?" "I'll be fine, I always am, but you'll come back, right?" "I will, and when I come back, I'll bring surprises." Daniel kissed the girl's forehead and set off for the regional hospital in Oakhaven. If a woman had been taking care of Lily and then disappeared 6 months ago, perhaps there were medical records that would explain what had happened. At the hospital, he sought out the social worker, a lady named Mrs. Connors, whom he knew from the time his mother had been hospitalized years ago. "Mr. Harrison, what a surprise to see you here. Is everything all right?" Mrs. Connors, I need some information. About 6 months ago, did any young woman get admitted here? Thin, long hair, wore a lot of bracelets? The woman thought for a few moments. Well, 6 months ago, let me see. Ah, yes. There was a young woman who was hospitalized for a few weeks. Laura, I think was her name. Very thin indeed, looked malnourished. Daniel's heart stopped. Laura, who? Let me check the files. Mrs. Connors disappeared for a few minutes that he felt like hours. When she returned, she was carrying a folder with yellowed papers. Laura Harrison, admitted in February of this year with severe malnutrition and exhaustion. She was here for 3 weeks. And what happened to her? According to the records, she passed away at the end of February. Complications from pneumonia that worsened due to her weakened state of health. The room started to spin around Daniel. He grabbed a chair to keep from collapsing. She died here? Yes, but the strange thing is that she talked a lot about a little daughter. Said she needed to live to take care of the girl. We even tried to look for the child, but we never found her. And where was she buried? In the municipal cemetery. She had no known family, so it was a simple burial. Daniel staggered out of the hospital, trying to process the information. If Laura had died 6 months ago, who was the woman Lily claimed to see every night? And how did the child know so many details about the Harrison family? He drove to the municipal cemetery, a small place on the outskirts of town. He searched for almost an hour until he found a simple wooden cross with the name Laura Harrison hand-carved on it. He knelt before the grave, and for the first time in 20 years he cried. He cried for the sister he had lost twice, first when she ran away, and now discovering she was gone forever without him knowing. He cried for the lost opportunity to ask for forgiveness, to explain that he had regretted his betrayal all these years. Laura, if you can hear me somehow, forgive me, he whispered between tears. I've spent my whole life wanting to undo what I did that day. He stayed there for an hour, talking to the earth that covered his sister, telling her about his lonely life, about how he had become a bitter and closed-off man from carrying so much guilt. When he finally stood up, he noticed something that disturbed him even more. There were fresh flowers on the grave, white daisies, Laura's favorite flowers as a child. But he had been the only person there all afternoon. On the way back to the river, he stopped again at Mr. Henderson's bakery. Mr. Henderson, do you remember anything else about that woman? With the bracelets? Any detail? You know, now that I think about it, she always bought daisies at the flower shop on the corner. Every week, white daisies. Mrs. Rose would probably remember her better. Daniel ran to the flower shop. Mrs. Rose, a 60-year-old lady, confirmed his most frightening suspicions. Of course I remember her. Such a young girl, but so sad. She bought daisies every week and said they were to visit someone special. She stopped coming about 6 months ago. And after she stopped coming, did anyone else buy white daisies? Not that I recall, but it's strange, because every now and then I see daisies in the cemetery that look like the ones I sell, always on the same grave, way in the back. Daniel felt a shiver run up his spine. What grave? The one for that young woman, Laura. Poor thing, died so young. The world seemed to collapse on Daniel. The fresh flowers he had seen on the grave, Lily's nightly conversations, Laura's personal items appearing mysteriously. It was all starting to form a pattern that was impossible to explain, but equally impossible to ignore. He returned to the river late in the afternoon, finding Lily playing in the shallow water near the bank. She ran to meet him with a radiant smile. "You took a long time. The pretty lady said you went to visit her today." Daniel sat down heavily on the sand. "Lily, I need to tell you something very important. The pretty lady you see, she was my sister Laura. I know, she told me. But Lily, my sister, She died 6 months ago." The girl stopped playing and looked at him with an understanding beyond her years. "I know that too. She explained to me that some special people get to stay a little longer to take care of the ones they love. And you're her daughter?" "I am. She always said you would take care of me when she couldn't anymore." Tears streamed down Daniel's face again. Lily was his niece. Laura's daughter had grown up without him knowing of her existence, and now she was here, alone and vulnerable, waiting for him to fulfill a promise he didn't even know he had made. "Lily, why did your mother never look for me? Why didn't she tell me about you?" She said she was ashamed, that she had left home angry and didn't know how to come back, and she was afraid you wouldn't forgive her. "I forgave her a long time ago. I spent all these years wanting to apologize. She knows. That's why she brought me here, for you to find us." That night, Daniel didn't pretend to sleep. He stayed awake, waiting, wanting to see for himself if Laura would really appear. Around midnight, he heard Lily moving and followed her silently to the riverbank. "Hi, Mommy," the girl whispered into the darkness. "Uncle Dan found out about you today. He cried." "A lot." Daniel sharpened all his senses, but he couldn't see or hear anything beyond Lily's voice. Still, there was something in the air, a presence he couldn't explain. "He wants to talk to you," Lily continued. "Don't you want to appear for him?" Suddenly, a gentle breeze swept through the place, rustling Lily's hair in a way that didn't match the calm of the night. And Daniel swore he heard, very softly, a familiar voice whispering, "Dan, forgive me." The whisper Daniel thought he heard echoed in his mind throughout the early morning. When the sun rose, he was sitting on the riverbank watching Lily sleep peacefully in the boat. The reality that she was Laura's daughter had changed everything. She was no longer just any abandoned child. She was family. She was the only family he had left in the world. Lily woke up to the sound of birds and stretched like a kitten. Seeing Daniel still awake, she ran to him with concern. "Uncle Dan, you didn't sleep." "I couldn't. I was thinking about a lot of things." "Mommy said you'd be like that. She said that when you find out the truth about something important, you can't sleep right for days." It was true. Since he was a child, Daniel had a habit of obsessing over problems until he completely solved them. Laura always teased him about it, saying he thought too much and felt too little. "Lily, I need to take you to my house. You can't keep living here alone." The girl hesitated, looking at the boat that had been her home for months. "But what if Mommy comes looking for me and can't find me?" "She'll know where you are. Mothers always know." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Daniel helped Lily gather her few possessions, the rag dolls, some clothes, and small objects she considered precious. When they were almost ready to leave, the girl ran back to the boat. "I forgot something important." She came back carrying a crumpled shoebox that Daniel hadn't noticed before. "What's in there?" "Things Mommy left for you. She said that when the time was right, I had to give everything to Uncle Dan." Daniel's heart raced. "What kind of things?" "I don't know. She said not to open it, that it was only for you." On the way to town, Lily was quiet, watching the landscape through the pickup truck's window. It was the first time in months she had left the river's vicinity, and everything seemed new and scary to her. "Uncle Dan, is your house big?" "It's simple, but it has a yard where you can play." "And will there be other people there?" "Just you and me." "And will Mommy be able to visit us there too?" Daniel didn't know how to answer that question. "Lily, maybe it's time for you to understand that your mother, that she can't appear like before anymore." "Why not?" "Because she needs to rest now. She took care of you for a long time, and now it's my turn." Lily processed this information in silence for a few minutes. So she's not going to appear anymore? Maybe not in the same way, but she'll always be watching over you, even if you don't see her. Like my grandma watched over her when she was little. Daniel almost lost control of the steering wheel. Your mother told you about our mother. She did. She said Grandma used to sing that song to put you to sleep, and that she had warm hands that made any pain go away. Tears returned to Daniel's eyes. That was exactly how he remembered his mother. Her hands always seemed to have healing powers, capable of soothing any physical or emotional wound. They arrived at Daniel's house in the middle of the morning. It was a simple two-bedroom house with a small but well-kept backyard. Lily explored every room with curiosity, touching furniture and objects as if it were a museum. "This will be your room," Daniel said, showing her the smaller room he used as an office. "We'll need to buy a bed and proper furniture for you. Can I put my dolls in? The window? You can put them wherever you want." While Lily played in the yard, Daniel locked himself in his own room with the shoebox she had brought. His hands trembled as he opened the lid, not knowing what he would find inside. The first item was a photo he had never seen, of a pregnant Laura smiling shyly at the camera. On the back, it was written in her handwriting, "Lily, 5 months. She's going to be stubborn like her father, but sweet like her uncle." The second thing was a birth certificate. Lily Harrison Miller, born in a nearby city. The father's field was marked unknown, but Daniel noticed that Laura had given her daughter the family's last name. There were also letters, many letters, all addressed to him, but never sent. Daniel picked up the first one, dated 4 years ago, and began to read. "Dan, I know you must hate me for disappearing like that, but you need to know that not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about our family. I'm pregnant and so scared. The baby's father left me when he found out, and now I only have you in the world. But how can I come back after everything that happened? How can I ask for forgiveness for tearing the family apart?" Daniel stopped reading for a moment, wiping his blurry eyes. He continued with the next letter. "The baby was born today. She's a beautiful girl with your dark eyes. I named her Lily because I remember Mum saying lilies were flowers that grew even in the most difficult places. I wish you could meet your niece, Dan. I wish I could come home." The letters continued, narrating Lily's growth, Laura's financial difficulties, her work as a housekeeper in family homes, always saving every penny, dreaming of the day she would have the courage to return to Oakhaven. The most recent letter was from just 7 months ago. "Dan, I'm very sick. The doctors don't say it clearly, but I know my time is running out. Lily doesn't deserve to be alone in the world. I'm teaching her everything about our family, so that when the time comes for her to find you, you were always good deep down, even when Dad made you be tough. Please take care of our little princess. She's the best of both of us." At the bottom of the box was a small sealed envelope with the words, "To be opened with Lily." Daniel carefully put it aside and left the room. He found the girl in the yard, talking quietly to her dolls under a mango tree. He approached slowly. "Lily, can I sit with you?" "You can, Uncle Dan. I was telling them that we're going to live here now." "And what did they think?" "Rosie the doll said she'll like having a real window. Bluebell the doll was worried if there would be enough room for all of them in the new room." Daniel smiled for the first time in days. "There will be room, and tomorrow we're going to buy a very nice bed for you. And furniture for the dolls too. And furniture for the dolls too." Lily stood up and hugged her uncle tightly. "Uncle Dan, Mommy was right. You really do have a heart of gold." That afternoon, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He closed his business early and dedicated his full time to his niece. He took her to see the town, bought her new clothes, and took her to dinner at a simple diner. During dinner, Lily asked, Uncle Dan, now that I live with you, can I call you Dad? The question caught Daniel off guard. Would you like that? I'd like it very much. I've never had a real dad. Then you can call me whatever you want, my princess. That night, when he put Lily to sleep on the living room sofa, since he hadn't arranged for a bed yet, she held his hand. Daddy Dan, do you know what Mommy told me before she disappeared for good? What was it? That now she could rest in peace, because she knew I would have the best dad in the world. Daniel kissed the girl's forehead and turned off the light, but he sat there in the darkness for a long time, processing how his life had completely changed in just a few days. From a lonely and bitter entrepreneur, he had become the father of a special little girl who carried the best of his lost sister. The first few weeks of Daniel and Lily living together were a period of mutual adjustment that brought unexpected joys, but also challenges the entrepreneur had never imagined facing. The routine he had built over decades as a single man was completely transformed to accommodate the needs of a 4-year-old child. Daniel discovered that Lily had frequent nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night calling for her mother. The first few nights, he felt lost, unsure how to comfort her. But he gradually learned that his silent presence, sitting beside her until she fell back asleep, was enough to calm her. Daddy Dan, Mommy appeared in my dream yesterday, she told him one morning over breakfast. She said she was happy because I have a real bed now. And what else did she say? That you were taking good care of me, just like she knew you would. And that soon she wouldn't appear in my dreams anymore because I wouldn't need her to. Daniel realized that Laura's appearances were becoming less frequent as Lily felt more secure in her new home. It was as if his sister were truly saying a gradual farewell, allowing her daughter to form new bonds. One afternoon, while organizing the new toys he had bought for Lily, Daniel found her crying in the yard, sitting under the mango tree. What's wrong, Princess? I miss Mommy. It's been 3 days since she's appeared, not even in my dreams. Does that make you sad? A little. But it also makes me happy, because it means she's not worried about me anymore. The girl's emotional maturity continued to surprise Daniel. At 4 years old, she showed an understanding of life and loss that many adults did not possess. It was during one of these conversations in the yard that Lily asked a question that changed the course of everything. Daddy Dan, Mommy left a letter that we were supposed to open together. Did you forget? Daniel had saved the sealed envelope, waiting for the right moment to open it. Perhaps this was the moment. You're right. Shall we go get the letter? They sat on the floor of Lily's room, surrounded by her dolls, neatly arranged in the window. Daniel carefully opened the envelope, finding a letter and something wrapped in tissue paper. My dear Lily and my dear brother Dan, the letter began. If you are reading this together, it means everything happened as I planned. Lily, my princess, Daddy Dan, will take care of you better than I ever could. He has a huge heart, even if he's sometimes afraid to show it. Lily listened attentively, even if she didn't understand all the words. Dan, there's something I never told you that you need to know. When I ran away from home, I was really in love with that boy, but I was also running from myself. I had discovered that Dad wasn't my biological father, and it left me confused about who I really was. Daniel stopped reading, shocked. Our mother never told me anything about this. The letter continued. I found out through a conversation I overheard between her and Grandma. She had married Dad already pregnant with me, and he agreed to raise me as his daughter. That's why he was always stricter with me than with you. Deep down, I wasn't really his daughter. This changes everything I thought I knew about our family, Daniel murmured. When I ran away, I spent years trying to find out who my real father was. That's how I met Jacob, Lily's father. He helped me in this search, and for a while, I thought I had found answers. But when Lily was born and he abandoned us, I realized that real family isn't about blood, it's about love and choice. Lily took her uncle's hand. Daddy Dan, does that mean you weren't real brother and sister? We were brother and sister of the heart, Princess. Just like you and I are family of the heart now. The letter continued with even more surprising revelations. Dan, inside this envelope is a map. It's a map of the places where I hid letters all these years I was away. Letters I wrote to you, to Mom, to Dad. Letters asking for forgiveness, explaining my feelings, telling you about Lily. I never had the courage to send them, but I kept them in special places, dreaming of the day we could reunite. Daniel unwrapped the tissue paper and found a hand-drawn map with several points marked in red around Oakhaven and neighboring towns. There are dozens of hiding spots, he murmured, studying the map. She really came back to the area several times over the years. Did Mommy visit us without us knowing? Lily asked. It seems so, Princess. The letter ended with a revelation that shook Daniel. In the hiding spot marked with a star is the most important letter. It's the letter that explains why I never came home, even when I wanted to most. And it's also where something that belonged to our real father, my biological father, is kept. Lily deserves to know this part of her history too. Daniel looked at the map and located the star. It was marked on the ruins of an old plantation house about 10 miles from town. Lily, how about we go on an adventure tomorrow? We'll follow Mommy's map. The girl's eyes sparkled. A real treasure hunt? A real treasure hunt. That night, Daniel stayed up studying the map and rereading the letter. Each revelation from Laura destroyed certainties he had carried for decades about his family. If she wasn't the biological daughter of the man he called Dad, it would explain many of the family tensions that marked his childhood. The next morning, they packed a backpack with water and snacks and set off on their first expedition. Lily was excited, treating everything like a big game, but Daniel felt the weight of the discoveries that might lie ahead. The old plantation house was in an abandoned rural area, surrounded by sugarcane fields that hadn't been cultivated in decades. The main structure had partially collapsed, but some walls still stood against time. "Is this it, Daddy Dan?" Lily asked, impressed by the ruins covered in vegetation. "Looks like it. Let's look for a place where your mom could have hidden something." They searched for almost an hour until they found a loose stone in one of the inner walls. Behind it was a small niche where Laura had stored a metal box wrapped in plastic. Inside the box were more letters, old photographs, and a document that finally made Daniel understand the full complexity of his family's history. It was Laura's birth certificate, which listed as her father a man named Albert Miller, the same last name Lily carried. "Jacob wasn't just Mommy's boyfriend," Daniel murmured, connecting the dots. "He was her cousin. She had found her biological father's family." Among the photographs was one of a young man next to a woman Daniel recognized as his mother, but much younger than he had known her. On the back was written, "Albert and Mary, 1978. "Lily, I think we've discovered who your real grandfather was." The girl observed the photograph with curiosity. "Does he look like me?" "A little, especially in the eyes." But it was the last letter in the box that brought the most shocking revelation. Jacob hadn't abandoned Laura by chance. He had discovered that Albert Miller, her biological father, had left a considerable inheritance for all direct descendants, but only if they were located before a legal deadline that would expire in a few months. Lily, as Albert Miller's great-granddaughter, was entitled to this inheritance. And Laura had spent her last years trying to gather the necessary documents to claim it, dreaming of securing a better future for her daughter. The discovery of the inheritance left Daniel in a state of shock the entire way home. Lily, oblivious to the complexity of the situation, hummed softly in the passenger seat, happy to have found photographs of people who were part of her history. "Daddy Dan, did Mommy know about this money?" "It seems she did, Princess, and she was trying to get it for you. But I don't need money. I have you now." The simplicity of Lily's answer contrasted with the turmoil of thoughts in Daniel's mind. If Laura had spent years trying to claim this inheritance, it meant she had carefully planned her daughter's future, even knowing she wouldn't be there to see it. Arriving home, Daniel called Mr. Morris, a well-known lawyer who could guide him on inheritance matters. They scheduled a meeting for the next day, but the entrepreneur spent the night studying all the documents they had found. The next morning, he left Lily with Mrs. Francis, a trusted neighbor, and headed to the law office. Mr. Morris, a 60-year-old man with experience in inheritance law, carefully analyzed all the papers. "Daniel, this is very serious. Albert Miller did indeed leave a substantial inheritance, and from what I can see in the documents, the deadline to claim it expires in 6 weeks. How substantial? We're talking about rural properties, investments, and a bank account. At current market values, it should be around $800,000 to be divided among the direct heirs." Daniel almost fell out of his chair. 800,000. "The issue is that your niece will need all the supporting documentation for the lineage. And from what I see here, some documents are still missing." "What documents?" "Laura's marriage certificate to Lily's father, for example, and most importantly, a document proving that Jacob Miller was indeed a descendant of Albert Miller." Daniel returned home with a mixture of hope and concern. The inheritance could secure Lily's future, but getting all the necessary documents in just 6 weeks seemed impossible. "Daddy Dan, why do you look so sad?" Lily asked when he arrived. "I'm not sad, Princess. Just worried about some adult things. Mommy left more clues on the map. Aren't we going to look for them?" Daniel had completely forgotten about the other points marked on Laura's map. Maybe the answers he needed were there. "You're right. How about we look tomorrow?" The next day, they went to the second location marked on the map, an old abandoned church on the outskirts of Oakhaven. Laura had hidden another envelope behind a statue of a saint that miraculously still remained intact. This time, they found copies of documents Laura had obtained over the years, including birth records of various members of the Miller family, and a letter that revealed another painful aspect of her journey. "Dan, when I found Jacob and discovered we were distant cousins, I thought I had finally found my place in the world. He helped me understand our family history and introduced me to the other Millers still living in the area. But when I got pregnant with Lily, everything changed." The letter went on to explain that Jacob had been scared by the responsibility of being a father and the legal implications of the inheritance. Apparently, there were other descendants of Albert Miller vying for the same rights, and the presence of a new heir complicated the situation even more. "He didn't abandon me because he didn't love me. He abandoned me because he was afraid of the consequences. Afraid of the family, afraid of the lawyers, afraid of having to share an inheritance he already considered his." Lily played among the pews of the abandoned church, while Daniel read, oblivious to the drama that had surrounded her birth. "That's why I never tried to contact him again. I decided I would get the documents and claim Lily's rights on my own. But the bureaucracy is too complex, and my health was getting worse." The last part of the letter revealed where Laura had kept the most important information. "In the third hiding spot is everything I managed to gather about the Miller family, and also a surprise that could change everything for Lily." The third location marked on the map was the farthest, an abandoned farm almost 30 miles from town. Daniel decided they would go over the weekend when he would have more time for a thorough search. During the following week, strange things began to happen. Daniel received a call from a man who identified himself as Robert Miller, Jacob's cousin, asking about Lily. "How did you know about my niece?" "Jacob told me years ago he had a daughter. Now that we've heard someone is investigating old Albert's inheritance, we started looking for her. And what do you want? To talk. We're family after all. And maybe we can help with the necessary documentation." Daniel was immediately suspicious. If Jacob had abandoned Laura precisely to avoid complications with the inheritance, why were his relatives now appearing and offering help? "I'm not interested in talking right now. Mr. Harrison, you need to understand that this inheritance is complex. There are many interested parties, and without our help, you won't be able to gather all the documents in time. We'll manage on our own." "I hope so, but if you change your mind, we're willing to talk." The call made Daniel even more determined to find everything Laura had hidden. It was obvious the Miller family knew much more about the inheritance than they were willing to reveal. On Saturday, they set off for the abandoned farm. The place was even more desolate than the previous ones. An extensive property where only the ruins of a main house and a few smaller buildings remained. "Is this where we'll find Mommy's treasure?" Lily asked, impressed by the size of the place. "We hope so." They searched for hours until they found a building that seemed to have been a private chapel for the farm. There, hidden under a stone in the altar, Laura had kept her most important discovery. It wasn't just a box of documents. It was a small but heavy chest that contained not only papers, but also personal items of Albert Miller. And among them was something that completely changed the game. A land deed dated 1995, transferring a 300-hectare property in the region directly to all direct descendants of Albert Miller. "Daddy Dan, is this the farm we're on?" Daniel checked the coordinates on the deed. It was exactly that property. "Lily, all this land, it's yours." But the discovery also brought a final letter from Albert Miller, explaining why he had made that donation. He had discovered that Jacob and other relatives were trying to illegally seize his properties while he was still alive, and he decided to transfer everything directly to the descendants who had not yet been born. "Let the greedy fight over my personal property," the letter said. "The lands will go to those who truly need them." Daniel realized that Robert Miller and the other relatives had spent years trying to invalidate that deed, but could never do so because they didn't know about Lily's existence. Now that she had appeared, they would try to use other means to get what they wanted. "Lily, I think our adventure is just beginning," he murmured, looking out at the vastness of the property that now belonged to his 4-year-old niece. On the way back home, Lily fell asleep in the car, hugging the teddy bear she always carried. Daniel drove in silence, planning the next steps to protect the girl's rights, and finally understanding why Laura had chosen such an elaborate way to bring the family together. On the Monday following the discovery of the farm, Daniel woke up with the feeling that they were being watched. During breakfast, he noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the corner of his street, with 2 men inside pretending to read a newspaper. "Daddy Dan, who are those men in the blue car?" Lily asked, having noticed the same thing. "I don't know, Princess, but let's be careful." Daniel took Lily to the private school where he had enrolled her the previous week, but he took a different route than usual. The blue car followed them discreetly, confirming his suspicions that they were being watched. On the way home, he decided to confront the situation. He abruptly stopped the car and got out, walking straight toward the stranger's vehicle. The men tried to drive off, but the traffic was congested. "You're following my family. Why?" The driver, a bald man in his 40s, rolled down the window. "We don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Do you work for the Miller family?" The passenger, who was younger, leaned forward. Mr. Harrison, you don't understand the situation. Your niece is in danger. What kind of danger? There are people willing to do anything to get those lands. You've stirred up a hornet's nest. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Are you threatening me? We're trying to protect you. Robert Miller isn't the only one interested in the inheritance. There are outside investors who want those lands for a mining project, and they won't accept a 4-year-old child as an obstacle. The man handed a card to Daniel. If you want real protection, call this number. We're private investigators hired by someone who has an interest in keeping Lily safe. What person? Someone who knew Laura well and wants to honor her memory. Before Daniel could ask more questions, the traffic cleared and the car sped off, leaving him standing in the street with more doubts than answers. Arriving home, he found Mr. Morris waiting for him at the door, a worried expression on his face. Daniel, we need to talk urgently. I've received some disturbing information about Lily's inheritance. They went inside, and the lawyer spread several documents across the kitchen table. I've discovered that the farm where you were isn't just ordinary land. There are suspicions of valuable mineral deposits in the region. That explains why so many people are interested. What kind of minerals? Possibly copper and iron. A company was trying to buy up all the properties in the area 2 years ago, but ran into the issue of Albert Miller's unresolved inheritance. Daniel sat down heavily in his chair. This means Lily inherited something much more valuable than we thought. Exactly, and it also explains why Jacob disappeared. He must have found out about the minerals and got scared of the consequences. What consequences? When there's a lot of money involved, Daniel, people do terrible things. Jacob probably ran to protect himself and, indirectly, to protect Laura and Lily too. At that moment, the phone rang. It was Lily's school. Mr. Harrison, this is the principal. A strange situation happened today. A man showed up claiming to be Lily's uncle and tried to pick her up early. Daniel's heart stopped. Did you let her go with him? Of course not. We followed protocol and only released children to authorized people, but he was very insistent and said he would come back with documents. I'm coming to get Lily now. Daniel rushed to the school, leaving Mr. Morris at home analyzing the documents. On the way, he called the number the investigator had given him. I need help. They tried to kidnap my niece. We expected this to happen. Where are you now? On my way to her school. Don't go back home afterward. Go straight to the Continental Hotel downtown. We've already booked a room for you. For how long? Until we resolve this situation. Daniel arrived at the school and found Lily playing normally in the yard, oblivious to the danger she had been in. The principal showed him the security camera footage, where a tall man appeared trying to convince her to hand over the girl. I've never seen this man before, Daniel said, watching the footage. He said he was Jacob Miller, the child's father. Daniel's blood ran cold. Jacob was back, but apparently not to reconnect with his daughter, but to use her in some way related to the inheritance. Lily, we're going on a different adventure today. We're going to sleep in a hotel. A real hotel? With a pool? We'll find out. At the Continental Hotel, they were greeted by an elegant woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Ms. Valerie Mendez. Mr. Harrison, I'm a lawyer specializing in mining law. I was hired to protect Lily's interests. Hired by, and whom? By someone who prefers to remain anonymous for now, but who has personal reasons for wanting Albert Miller's inheritance to be preserved for its true heirs. They settled into a comfortable suite, and while Lily explored the room, delighted with the novelty, Ms. Mendez explained the real situation. The mining company is called Southern Extraction, Inc. They discovered the mineral deposits 3 years ago and have been trying to acquire all the lands in the region for far less than their real value. When they learned of the unresolved inheritance, they started looking for the heirs to make deals. What kind of deals? They offer sums of money for the heirs to waive their rights to the lands. Some have accepted, others are resisting. And Jacob? Jacob was initially willing to sell, but when he found out he had a daughter who would also be an heir, everything got complicated. He can't sell her share without a court order. That's why he tried to pick her up from school. Probably to get the necessary documentation or to force some kind of deal. Lily approached the conversation carrying her dolls. "Daddy Dan, who is that man who wanted to take me from school? The teacher said he was my daddy." "He's a person who's confused, Princess. Your only daddy is me now. And is he going to try to get me again?" Ms. Mendez knelt in front of Lily. "We won't let that happen. We have people making sure you stay safe at all times." That night, while Lily slept, Daniel received a call that changed everything once again. "Daniel, it's Jacob, Lily's father. You have some nerve calling here after trying to kidnap my niece." "I didn't try to kidnap anyone. I just wanted to meet my daughter." "You had 4 years for that. Where were you when Laura was sick?" "I was trying to sort out the inheritance to secure Lily's future. You don't understand the danger she's in." "What danger?" "Southern extraction won't stop here. They have persuasive methods. If Lily doesn't sell her part, they'll find other ways to get those lands." "How?" "Accidents happen, Daniel, especially with little children who don't have anyone to protect them properly." The call dropped, leaving Daniel in a state of panic. Was Jacob trying to scare him, or was he really warning him of a real danger? He looked at Lily sleeping peacefully in the hotel bed and made a decision. It didn't matter how many people wanted those lands or how much money was involved. He would protect his niece from everything and everyone, even if it meant facing enemies he didn't know and dangers he barely understood. The next morning at the hotel brought a deceptive calm. Lily woke up excited about the pool she could see from the room window, but Daniel had been awake all night, planning the next steps to protect her. Jacob's call had confirmed his worst fears. They were dealing with people willing to do anything. During breakfast, Ms. Mendez appeared with news that further complicated the situation. "Daniel, I need to tell you something I discovered during the night. My anonymous client has finally agreed to reveal himself, and it's someone you know." "Who is it?" "Mr. Morris." Daniel almost dropped his coffee cup. "The lawyer you recommended? He's your client?" "Not exactly. In fact, Morris has been my partner for 15 years. He contacted me after you met because he recognized the name Albert Miller." "How did he recognize it?" "Because Morris represented Albert Miller 20 years ago when he was making his will, and he always knew about the mineral deposits." Lily played with her dolls at the next table, humming softly, oblivious to the revelation that changed everything. "Does that mean he knew from the beginning about the real value of the inheritance?" "Yes, and more. He knew you were Laura's brother because Albert specifically mentioned the existence of an unrecognized daughter who had run away from home with a young man." Daniel stood up abruptly, feeling betrayed. So from day one he was manipulating the situation. "Not manipulating, protecting. Morris always knew that when the inheritance was claimed, there would be conflicts. He was waiting for a legitimate heir to appear so he could help." "And why didn't he tell me the truth?" "Because he needed to be sure that you really cared about Lily, not just the money. The last few days have been a test." At that moment, Daniel's cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Mr. Harrison, this is Robert from Southern Extraction. We'd like to talk to you about a very interesting proposal." "I'm not interested in talking to you." "Sir, you might change your mind when you hear we're offering $2 million for your niece's lands. That's much more than she could ever get from agriculture." The amount made Daniel hesitate for a moment. It was enough money to secure Lily's future for a lifetime. "I need to think." "Of course, but our offer has a deadline, 48 hours. After that, we might not be so generous. The threatening tone was clear. Daniel hung up the phone and recounted the conversation to Ms. Mendez. "2 million is a lot of money," she said, "but the mineral reserves on that land are worth at least 10 times more. How do you know that?" "Because Morris hired an independent geological assessment years ago when Albert Miller was still alive. He wanted the old man to know exactly what he was leaving to his heirs." Lily approached the conversation. "Daddy Dan, do those men want to buy the farm Mommy left for me?" "They do, Princess, but I don't want to sell. I want to plant flowers there, just like Mommy liked." The simplicity of Lily's answer resolved all of Daniel's doubts. It wasn't about money. It was about honoring Laura's memory and protecting the future she had dreamed of for her daughter. "Then we're not selling," Ms. Mendez smiled. "That's the answer we were hoping to hear, but now we need to prepare for a complex legal battle." In the afternoon, while Lily played in the hotel pool under the watchful eye of hired security guards, Daniel met with Morris and Mendez to fully understand the situation. "Morris, why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" "Because I needed to know if you were like me, or like the others who showed up wanting the inheritance." "What others?" "In the last 3 years, 7 different people have claimed to be relatives of Albert Miller. They all just wanted the money, willing to sell the lands immediately." "And what happened to them?" "We found out they were fraudsters, but we also discovered that Southern Extraction was funding some of these attempts, trying to create fake heirs who would sell the lands." Mendez pulled out a folder with photographs. "These are satellite images of Lily's lands. Look at these marked points." The photos showed several already devastated areas around Lily's property where the mining company had managed to buy other lands. "They're surrounding her property," said Morris. "If they get Lily's lands, they'll have direct access to the largest ore deposit in the region. And if they don't get them, they'll try other methods, political pressure, questionable lawsuits, or more direct methods." At that moment, one of the security guards ran into the room. "We need to get out of here now. There are armed men surrounding the hotel." Daniel looked out the window and saw several black cars strategically positioned around the building. "Is Lily still at the pool?" "We've already brought her to the room, but we need an alternative exit." Mendez picked up the phone. "I have a contact in hotel security. We'll use the emergency exit at the back." Minutes later, they were running through the hotel's service corridors with Lily in Daniel's arms. The girl was scared but trying to be brave. "Daddy Dan, are those the bad men who want our farm?" "Don't worry, Princess, we're going to be okay." They managed to get out of the hotel through the kitchen where a car was waiting for them. During their escape, Mendez explained that they had a safe location prepared. A house in the countryside, far from the city, where they could hide while they resolved the legal situation. "How long will we have to hide?" Daniel asked. "Until we can finalize all the inheritance documentation and make any attempt to question it illegal." "How long does that take?" "With luck, 2 weeks. Without luck?" "Without luck, it could take months." The safe house was in a small town called Clearwater, 2 hours from Oakhaven. It was a simple but comfortable rural property, surrounded by cornfields that offered natural privacy. Lily, despite the scare, soon adapted to the new environment. There were chickens in the yard, a small vegetable garden, and plenty of space to play. "Daddy Dan, is this place like Mommy's farm?" "Similar, yes. So can I plant flowers here too?" "You can plant whatever you want, Princess." That night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Daniel received a call that left him in a state of shock. "Daniel, it's Jacob. I need to tell you the truth about everything." "What truth?" "I never abandoned Laura out of cowardice. I was threatened. Southern Extraction found out about our relationship and her pregnancy. They gave me 2 options, disappear forever or watch my entire family suffer the consequences." "Why are you telling me this now?" Because I've finally gathered evidence against them, recordings, documents, proof that they've been bribing public officials and threatening entire families. Where are you? In hiding, just like you. But I want to help. I want to protect my daughter and honor Laura's memory. How can I trust you after everything? Because tomorrow I'm giving all the evidence to the press, and because I know where the last hiding place Laura prepared is. The most important one of all. What hiding place? Where she kept the definitive proof that Lily is the sole legitimate heir of Albert Miller. And where the document that can completely destroy Southern extraction is. Jacob's revelation about Laura's final hiding place left Daniel torn between suspicion and hope. Being away from his daughter for 4 years because of threats seemed too convenient an excuse, but the evidence he promised to deliver could change everything. "Where is this hiding place?" Daniel asked, keeping his voice low so as not to wake Lily. "In the main church of Oakhaven. Laura hid everything in the high altar's safe, using the contacts she had when she worked cleaning the church in the last months of her life. How do you know that? Because she's the one who told me, one of the last times we managed to talk. She was preparing to die, Daniel, and she wanted to make sure Lily had all the necessary tools to claim her rights." Daniel looked at Morris and Mendez, who were listening to the conversation on speakerphone. Morris gave a positive nod. "The main church does have an old safe in the altar," the lawyer confirmed quietly. "It would be a smart place to hide important documents." "Jacob, if this is a trap..." "It's not a trap. I can prove everything I'm saying. Tomorrow at 6 in the morning I'll be in the square in front of the church. If you want, bring witnesses, but come prepared to discover things that will completely change this story." The call ended, leaving everyone in silence. Lily stirred in the next room, murmuring something in her sleep, and Daniel went to check on her. "Daddy Dan," she whispered, half awake. "Are you leaving?" "No, Princess, I'm here." "I dreamed about Mommy again. She said that tomorrow everything will be over and we can go back home." "It was just a dream, my dear." "No, it wasn't. Mommy really appeared. She said that my blood dad finally had the courage to do the right thing." Daniel felt a shiver. Lily didn't know they had spoken with Jacob. "What else did she say?" "That the most important secret is kept in a sacred place, and that tomorrow you will find out why she chose you to take care of me." The next morning, they set off for Oakhaven with a small escort of security guards. Lily was excited about the trip, but Daniel felt the weight of the tension surrounding the meeting. "Daddy Dan, are we going to see Daddy Jacob today?" "Maybe so, Princess. Mommy said he's nice, but he was very scared of some bad men." "And what do you think about that?" "I think everyone gets scared sometimes, even dads." They arrived at the church square at 5:45 in the morning. The place was empty except for a few shopkeepers opening their stores. At 6 o'clock sharp, a tall, thin man approached the group. It was Jacob, visibly nervous but determined. "Daniel, thank you for coming." "Lily, this is Jacob. He knew your mother." The girl observed the man with curiosity. "You have the same eyes as me." "I do," Jacob replied, his voice choked with emotion. "You're even more beautiful than your mother said." "Did Mommy talk about me to you?" "She did. Every day." Morris interrupted the moment. "Jacob, let's deal with the documents first." "Of course. Father Anthony is already waiting for us inside." They entered the main church, where the elderly priest greeted them with a sad smile. "You've come to get what Mrs. Laura left in my keeping." "You knew?" Daniel asked, surprised. "I did. She came to me a few days before she died, asking me to keep some important papers for her daughter. She said that one day you would come for them." The priest led them to the high altar, where he opened a small safe embedded in the side wall. From inside, He took out an old leather folder and a sealed envelope. She insisted that I personally deliver this to her brother and the child's father together. She said it was important that you read everything at the same time. Jacob took the folder with trembling hands. Daniel, are you sure you want to open this here? I'm sure. The folder contained documents none of them expected to find. The first was a letter from Albert Miller addressed specifically to Laura, dated just a few months before his death. My dear daughter, if you are reading this, it means you have discovered the truth about our family. I always knew of your existence, even though your mother never told me directly. I spent years trying to find a way to officially acknowledge you without destroying her marriage. Daniel stopped reading, stunned. Albert Miller knew about Laura. Jacob nodded. Keep reading. When I learned you had run away from home and were struggling, I tried to help discreetly, but you were too proud to accept help from a stranger, so I decided to leave everything in the hands of fate, trusting that one day you would appear to claim your rights. The second document was even more surprising. A detailed confession about how Southern Extraction had tried to bribe Albert Miller years ago to get access to his lands. The company tried to intimidate me, offer money, even threaten my family. When I refused all their proposals, they started pressuring other landowners in the region. I saw entire families destroyed by the greed of these men. Lily played silently among the church pews while the adults discovered the extent of the conspiracy that had shaped their lives. The third document was the most shocking of all. A detailed report on illegal methods used by the mining company, including document forgery, bribery of public officials, and intimidation of rural families. Laura got all this, Mendez murmured, impressed by the quality of the evidence. She worked for months collecting information, Jacob explained. She talked to former company employees, families who had been pressured, even a geologist who was fired for refusing to falsify reports. Morris examined the documents with the eyes of an experienced lawyer. With this, we can not only protect Lily's inheritance, but also sue the company for a series of crimes. But there's something else, Jacob said, picking up the sealed envelope. Laura wrote a letter explaining why she chose you to take care of Lily instead of coming to me directly. Daniel opened the envelope with trembling hands. My dear brother Dan, if you are reading this, it means my plan worked. I know you must be confused about why I created such an elaborate situation, but I needed to be sure that you would take care of Lily out of love, not obligation. During all these years away, I learned about your character through people who knew you. I learned how you took care of our mother in her final months, how you built an honest business without exploiting anyone, how you maintained the values she taught us even after I left home. Lily approached the group, sensing that something important was happening. Is that from Mommy? She asked, pointing to the letter. It is, Princess, Daniel replied, his eyes full of tears. Jacob is a good man, but he is too afraid. Lily needs someone brave by her side, someone who will fight for her even when all seems lost. You were always the bravest of us too, Dan. That's why I chose you. The letter ended with a final revelation that completely changed everyone's perspective. The boat where I placed Lily was not chosen by chance. It was our family boat, the one Dad used for fishing on weekends when we were children. You probably don't remember because you were very young, but that's where our mother first told me about my real father. It was the most significant place of our childhood, and I wanted Lily to start her new life connected to our best family memories. Daniel knelt and hugged Lily tightly. Princess, your mother was very smart. She knew exactly what she was doing. She always knew, Lily replied simply. That's why I was never afraid to wait for you to appear. At that moment, Morris's cell phone rang. It was a call that would change everything once more. Morris's call interrupted the emotional moment in the church. He answered with an expression that quickly changed from curiosity to alarm. "Yes, I understand." "When did this happen? Are you sure?" "No, don't leave where you are." Morris hung up the phone and turned to the group, his face pale. "We have a serious problem. The house in Clearwater was broken into an hour ago. The security guards we left there were overpowered." "Overpowered how?" Daniel asked, instinctively pulling Lily closer. "Armed men. They searched the entire house, obviously looking for you. When they realized you weren't there, they left a message." "What message?" "That you have 24 hours to accept Southern Extraction's offer, or the consequences will be irreversible." Jacob clenched his fists. "It's time to end this. I have the recordings that can destroy this company once and for all." "What recordings?" asked Mendez. "Conversations between Southern Extraction directors confessing to bribing registry office employees to forge property documents, and also admitting they hired people to intimidate families who refused to sell their lands." Father Anthony, who had been listening to the whole conversation in silence, spoke up. "Children, perhaps it would be better to take this discussion elsewhere. The church should remain a sanctuary of peace." "You're right, Father," Daniel agreed. "Where can we go that's safe?" "I know a place," said Jacob. "My cousin Robert has a mechanic shop on the outskirts of town. It's isolated, and he can help us." "Robert Miller? The same one who called me offering help weeks ago?" "Exactly. He never wanted to get directly involved, but he's always been on our side." They left the church discreetly, split between two cars. Lily went with Daniel and Morris, while Jacob followed with Mendez in the car behind. During the drive, the girl asked a question that surprised Daniel. "Daddy Dan, if the bad men get the farm, will Mommy be sad?" "Why do you ask, Princess?" "Because I dreamed she was crying on a farm that was all destroyed, with big machines making holes in the ground." Morris exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. "Lily, it was just a nightmare." "It wasn't a nightmare. Mommy showed me how ugly the land gets when men take everything from underneath it. She said that's why it's important we don't let them do it." Robert's shop was on a dirt road connecting two small towns. It was a simple place, with various truck parts scattered around the yard and the strong smell of diesel in the air. Robert greeted them with a nervous smile. "Jacob, I thought you'd disappeared forever." "I almost did, but now it's time to sort everything out." Robert looked at Lily with curiosity. "This is her, isn't it? Laura's daughter?" "It is," Daniel confirmed, "and apparently she owns one of the largest mineral reserves in the region." "Well, she should own a lot more," Robert muttered, leading them into the shop. "What do you mean?" "Because Albert Miller had more properties than you've discovered. A lot more." Robert led them to a makeshift office in the back of the shop where maps were spread across the walls. "I've spent the last few months investigating old Albert's inheritance, and I discovered he had land in 4 different counties." Mendez examined the maps with professional attention. "This completely changes the value of the inheritance." "It's not just a matter of value," Robert continued, "it's a matter of power. If Lily inherits everything she's truly entitled to, she'll control nearly half of all mineral reserves in the entire region." "And what does that mean?" "It means Southern Extraction can't exist without her lands. If she refuses to sell, the company goes bankrupt." Jacob pulled a small recorder from his pocket. "That's why they're desperate. Listen to this." The recording was of a phone conversation between 2 Southern Extraction executives. "The girl is the last obstacle. If we don't get her lands, we lose everything." "And what do you suggest?" "There are ways to solve problems that justice can't, especially when the problem is only 4 years old." Are you serious? I'm talking about the company's survival. A $40 million investment can't be lost because of an orphan. The silence that followed in the shop was deafening. Lily was playing with her dolls on the floor, oblivious to the terrible implications of what they had just heard. Are they really planning to hurt my daughter? Jacob asked, his voice trembling with anger. They are, Morris confirmed, but now we have enough evidence to destroy them before they do anything. Mendez picked up her cell phone. I'm going to contact my sources in the press. With these recordings and the documents we found, we can expose everything publicly. It won't be enough, said Robert. Southern has enough money to buy a lot of people's silence. We need something more direct. Like what? We need to go straight to the source, confront the company owners with the evidence and force them to abandon the project. Daniel looked at Lily, who had stopped playing and was paying attention to the adults' conversation. Daddy Dan, do the bad men want to hurt me? The direct question caught everyone off guard. Daniel knelt in front of her. We will never let that happen, Princess. Mommy said that when people get very scared, they do bad things. But she also said that when people unite to protect those they love, they always win. Jacob approached and knelt beside Daniel. Lily, I know I haven't been a present father until now, but I promise that from today on, I will protect you alongside your daddy Dan. Are you going to stay with us? I will, if you want me to. I do. Then I'll have two daddies taking care of me. At that moment, Robert's cell phone rang. He answered quickly and his expression became alarmed. It was my contact at the City Hall. Southern Extraction is moving heavy equipment toward Lily's farm. Trucks, excavators, a full crew. They can't do that, Mendez protested. They don't have legal authorization. Since when does this company care about legality? Jacob replied bitterly. Daniel made a decision that surprised everyone. We're going there, to the farm. That's crazy, said Morris. It's exactly what they want. No. They want us to hide, to be afraid, to negotiate in desperation. If we go there with all the evidence, with the press, with witnesses, they won't be able to do anything. And what if we're wrong? Then at least Lily will see that we fought for her until the end. Lily stood up and took Daniel's hand. Are we going to save our farm, Daddy Dan? We are, Princess. We're going to save everything your mom left for you. Robert locked up the shop and addressed the group. I have a strong truck that can take everyone, and I know all the back roads to get to the farm without being detected. Then let's go, Jacob said, determined. It's time to end this story once and for all. As they prepared to leave, Lily whispered something only Daniel could hear. Mommy said today is the day everything gets resolved, and that she'll be there to help us. Daniel didn't know whether to believe the girl's words, but he felt that the time had truly come to definitively face all the ghosts of the past and all the dangers of the present. Robert's truck cut through the back roads of the state as the sun began to set on the horizon. Lily slept peacefully in Daniel's lap, lulled by the vehicle's sway, while the adults finalized the last details of the plan that could definitively resolve the girl's future. The team of journalists will meet us at the farm entrance, said Mendez, finishing a call, and the district attorney has also confirmed his attendance. With all the evidence we have, it will be impossible for Southern Extraction to deny the accusations. And what if they try something violent? Jacob asked, clearly worried. That's why we're going with all these people, Morris replied. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. They won't risk a tragedy in front of the cameras. When they arrived at the farm's vicinity, the scene was even worse than they had imagined. Dozens of Southern Extraction trucks were positioned at the property entrance, with excavators and other heavy equipment ready to begin the devastation. Men in hard hats walked across the land as if they already owned it all. They really think they can just invade the property, Daniel muttered, feeling anger build in his chest. Lily woke up to the noise of the engines and looked out the truck window. Daddy Dan, Are those the machines that make holes in the ground? They are, Princess, but we're not going to let them use them. Mommy's here, she said suddenly, looking at an empty area beside the road. She said now you'll understand why she prepared everything so carefully. Daniel followed Lily's gaze, but saw nothing but pasture and a few trees. Still, he felt a familiar shiver, as if a presence were really there. The journalists arrived shortly after, followed by a vehicle from the public prosecutor's office. The prosecutor, Carlos Eduardo, a serious man in his 40s, greeted the group and quickly examined the documents Mendez had prepared. With this material, I can immediately halt all of the company's activities on this property, he said, and also request a full investigation into the allegations of corruption. When they headed to the farm entrance, they were intercepted by a tall man in a suit, who was clearly one of the executives from Southern Extraction. Gentlemen, this is private property. You cannot enter here. Private property of whom? The prosecutor asked, showing his identification. Of Southern Extraction, Inc. We have legally acquired all rights to these lands. I'd like to see that documentation, Morris said, intervening in the conversation. And I'd like to know who you are to question our company. Mendez stepped forward. We are the legal representatives of the true owner of these lands, Lily Harrison Miller, direct heir of Albert Miller. The executive turned visibly pale upon hearing the name. That's impossible. There are no heirs of Albert Miller. Not only do they exist, but we have all the supporting documentation, the prosecutor said, and also evidence that your company attempted to forge documents to illegally seize these properties. At that moment, Lily got out of the truck and walked up to the executive. Are you one of the bad men who wanted to hurt me? The child's innocent question, asked in front of the journalist's cameras, caused visible embarrassment in the man. This is a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, said Jacob, pulling the recorder from his pocket. I have here the recording of you planning how to solve the problem of a 4-year-old child. The prosecutor took the recorder and addressed the executive directly. In the name of the public prosecutor's office, I am ordering the immediate suspension of all of this company's activities on this property. Any equipment not removed within 2 hours will be confiscated. You can't do this. We have investors, contracts, obligations. You should have thought of that before trying to forge documents and threaten a child, Mendez replied dryly. While the adults discussed legal matters, Lily wandered away from the group and walked across the property. Daniel followed her, concerned, but noticed she seemed to know exactly where she was going. The girl stopped before a centuries-old tree in the center of the farm, the same tree Albert Miller had mentioned in one of his letters as the heart of the property. This is where Mommy wants me to plant the flowers, Lily said simply. She said that when the machines are gone, we can turn this place into the most beautiful garden in the entire South. And we will, Princess. Do you promise that no one will ever try to take our farm away from us again? Daniel looked around, seeing the mining company's equipment being hastily removed, the journalists documenting everything, the prosecutor ensuring that justice would be served. I promise. Jacob approached the father and daughter. Lily, now that everything is resolved, how do you want our family to be? The girl thought for a moment, with the seriousness that always characterized her. I want you both to be my daddies. Daddy Dan, who teaches me to be brave, and Daddy Jacob, who teaches me about Mommy's family. And where will we live? Jacob asked. Here on the farm, of course. We'll build a very beautiful house with a room for my dolls and a huge yard to plant flowers. 3 months later, the promise was being fulfilled. The new house was completed on the exact spot Lily had chosen, near the centuries-old tree that became the center of the most elaborate garden in the region. Southern Extraction had been shut down after an investigation revealed decades of illegal practices, and its executives were facing multiple criminal charges. Daniel had sold his transport company and was dedicating himself full-time to managing Lily's inheritance, which included not only the lands, but also investments that would secure the girl's future for several generations. Jacob worked as the farm's manager, finally taking on his responsibility as a father. "Daddy Dan," Lily said one Sunday afternoon as they picked flowers from the garden she had planted herself, "Mommy doesn't appear in my dreams anymore." "Does that make you sad?" "No, because she said she would only stop appearing when she was sure I was completely happy and safe." "And are you?" "I am. I have 2 daddies who love me, a beautiful farm full of flowers, and I know Mommy is resting in peace, knowing that everything turned out right." Daniel hugged the niece who had become his daughter of the heart, watching Jacob play with her among the flowers. The beached boat where it had all begun now served as a playhouse for Lily, transformed into a symbol of hope instead of abandonment. "Do you know what else Mommy told me in my last dream?" Lily asked. "What was it?" "That real family isn't just who you're born with, it's who chooses to stay together even when things get hard." At that moment, a gentle breeze swept through the garden, rustling the flowers Lily had planted in honor of her mother, and Daniel was sure he felt, once again, the comforting presence of Laura blessing the family she had so carefully brought together. The girl who had been found alone in an abandoned boat now ran happily through a flowering garden, surrounded by the love of 2 people who had learned that the greatest treasure was not in the earth, but in the heart of a brave child who had transformed the lives of everyone around her. And so, the story that began with suffering and abandonment ended with love, unity, and the certainty that some special people have the power to heal old wounds and build futures that seemed impossible. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment what you thought of my story with a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.